What's up, guys? Welcome back to our episode of Site Visit in Needham. So last week when we were on site, we were talking about concrete footings, placing concrete in the hole, prepping for, we were talking about rebar in the footings, we're talking about things keyway. So we're back on site with Mike. Mike's gonna walk us through all of the steps he's taking for waterproofing on this project. Last week we placed concrete. I'm gonna ask you, because everyone else asked, why am I saying place? Someone said I had OCD calling it placed. Do you call it place or poured?
I flip back and forth.
All right,
I always wonder, like, what's the proper term? And so, I don't know. I think I used to always say pour, and then I guess working with you, you're always saying placed. And so then I'm like, well, then maybe I'm just always saying it wrong.
Either way, let's talk about a liquid that we actually know that is a liquid. Black stuff. What do we got going on?
So this is our same Tremco waterproofing that we're going to use on the exterior of the foundation. We spray the top of our footing as a capillary break.
And that capillary break, from a technical standpoint, what that's doing is this footing, the bottom of it's going to be in water.
Yes.
And, you know, kind of give us a scenario on how that water might work its way into this footing.
Yeah, so if your concrete's sitting in the water, it can wick up into it. You know, very similar to like taking a paper towel and dipping the corner in, and you can watch it wick up the paper towel. Concrete will do the same thing. And so this is the only chance that we have to stop that.
Right.
So we go in with the waterproofing, we spray the top of it. Our foundation guy's not too thrilled that he has to put his forms in it, but we'll get yelled at a little bit and he'll get over it. And
right. Hopefully it's fully dry before that.
Yes.
But we looked it up at one point, and I forget exactly, but it's tens of feet, like 40 feet or something. That
I know,
water
I was blown away at the number.
Yeah, and that water can just essentially, like you said, just like a paper towel, if you put one edge into it, that water's just going to creep up. And if it creeps up to the top of this footing, that means it's creeping up into this wall. And if it's creeping up into this wall, now it's in your envelope, your living space, you're dealing with moisture. How are you combating that? Things of that nature. So yeah, like you said, you know, putting this on top is going to help prevent that capillary action. Now, there's a great other solution. We could do the, you know, I forget what it's called, fast foot, which the guys over at Awesome Framers just did a great video on. Yeah. But that's basically preventing moisture from even hitting the bottom of the concrete.
Yeah, it's essentially a bag that you pour your footing into, which looks like a great product. We just, you know, we found out about it a little bit too late, and as far as
I mentioned it too late.
yeah, right.
We're preventing capillary action. We have other ways to combat water, because water is a concern. You can see the groundwater is basically in this depression.
Yep.
Before we get to here, we got the interior drainage.
Yeah.
So what is that interior drainage doing?
So that's running around our, you know, the perimeter of the basement, and we have two sump pits that we're tying that into. So we have one over on, you know, we'll say the primary suite side.
Yep.
And then over here on the other side of the house, trying to separate those as much as we can. So the drainage will just, any water that, if it ever makes it up to that level, goes into the pipe, and then it gets whisked right around the outside, and will go into those basins. And then we'll have the sump pumps there set up that they just run on a float, and if it's, you know, as soon as that float rises, triggers the sump pump to kick on, it'll just pump it out. And that, actually, in this town, we can actually tie it into the street.
Which is great. So that's going into storm water.
Correct.
But you have this one, you have this. What's up with the depression here?
So that's for our haunch slab. So we have some interior...
Haunch slab.
Correct.
Okay. What's a haunch slab?
Make a depression in the stone so we can fatten up the slab, and that allows us to put a load-bearing wall on it.
So you got a load-bearing wall somewhere here.
Yep.
And there's going to be rebar in this depression.
Correct.
So basically, structural engineer is requiring us to fatten this up, you know, so you're not on just a 4 or 6 inch wire mesh slab.
Yep, it'll be a foot thick.
So speaking of rebar, we have a lot of rebar in this project. It's a residential project. What number of rebar we got vertically here?
Number 5.
Same thing horizontally?
Yep.
So when you say a number 5, the number 5 indicates the 1/8 of an inch, 1/8 of an inch. So we're talking about a 5/8 piece of rebar. We got a lot of it.
12 on 12.
12 on 12, which means it's every 12 inches vertically
and every 12
inches horizontally. You can't see it from the inside here. On the outside, that's where they're tying it. What they do is they lay all this stuff on the ground, and then they take a tape, and they're gonna spray with orange spray paint every 12 inches. So when they're standing this stuff up, they're not out there with a measuring tape making sure that they're 12 on 12. it's really, you know, really straightforward. You see that orange mark, and they got the rebar tie guns, which make quick work of it.
I could watch those all day.
I know.
They're incredible. I gotta grab one and play with it later.
I feel like I would do something stupid and like try to like
tie your finger?
Yeah, tie my finger together.
Yeah, let's not.
I like how we both knew exactly where I was going with that. We have an exterior drain, and I want to come to that in a second. But you were looking at this box when you got over here. What do we got here?
All right, so this is bentonite.
Bentonite.
This is a water stop. It's that we will roll out and put in the keyway.
So this will go into
the keyway.
Into the keyway.
Yep. So we have like an adhesive that you put down first, which comes in like your standard caulking tube. We'll put a bead of that down, and then you take your bentonite strip and you press it into that, and that will seal it to your footing.
So this is going in here right now. What is that bentonite doing?
What we're trying to do is combat if any water was to get through that cold joint between our footing and our wall, try to come horizontally in. It will come in contact with the bentonite strip, which swells when it comes in contact with water, sealing up that joint between footing and wall, preventing the water from getting through.
So a couple key things there you just mentioned. You said if. So a lot of this stuff is if. So these are preventative measures that we're taking, redundant water stopping procedures that we're taking.
I should say when, right? 'Cause
well,
water always
it does, but I think the key with saying if is that, you know, what we're doing is we're putting multiple measures in place because it's relatively inexpensive to do it now than deal with water in the future.
Correct.
So that bentonite, the other thing that you said is that cold joint, if that ever fails, because you're going to have your waterproofing on the outside that bridges from the face of the wall down to your footing. So that joint, and this is relatively rubbery, so that joint really should not open, but it's important to note that when concrete's placed and when it dries, it actually shrinks. So when if and when that shrinks, if there are any voids and water makes its way through, then we're, you know, like you said, that stuff expands and fills any of that potential gap.
Yep, another layer of protection.
Gotcha. Last thing is that exterior drainage. Let's walk outside because that's a different. Well, first off, where's the exterior drainage tie into?
So that also ties into our sump basin.
So everything ties in here.
Yep. So we're picking up the water on both sides of the footing.
It'll come in.
Yeah, it's already bolted down. I don't want anything getting in there.
Fair enough. All right, I'll block the holes back up.
Yeah, we got to tape it all up. But so we'll tie into here, and then that, you know, the sump pump will take care of it and pump everything out to the street.
So on the inside you have PVC with small holes. What's the outside?
The outside is a corrugated pipe that is wrapped in a filter fabric.
This is it here.
Yep.
So it has small slits in it rather than the larger holes. But the filter fabric is for what?
Just to prevent any silt or anything getting into there.
So as dirt and moisture make its way through around this, it's preventing it from getting clogged.
Yep.
Gotcha. What we didn't talk about is radon, because at one point in an earlier video we talked about tying our radon into the top of this lid here. What did we end up doing?
We decided against that.
Okay.
So we got some great feedback. There's the service thing and
where is it now?
So now what we did is I have a spot over on the other side of the basement where we actually have a double wall on this basement level, and it lines up in our primary suite. There's a little cubby on the left-hand side of the tub that we can get a 4-inch vent up and out through the roof.
So basically a TY tied into our interior drainage, and that's going to go vertical up through the roof.
Correct.
And what are some of the things that we have to do in the basement? Like, will this be a passive system?
It will for now, but we always, you know, we're going to prep and put electrical next to it. So if you want to put in a fan, if there's ever an issue down the road, easy hook up, throw the fan in, and get it vented up and out.
So what we mean by passive radon is that this is just a vertical vent that goes up to open air to the rooftop. So like Mike's saying, we're going to add an outlet. So if we ever have heightened levels of radon and we need to combat that, we can add a fan, and that fan would sit somewhere here in that basement, and what that would do is it would create negative pressure underneath the slab, thus sucking that radon up and out the roof. For now, it's just passively venting through a vertical stack. And off camera, Doug just said that's from a YouTube comment. Yes, it is from a YouTube comment. Hopefully that answers the question there. So like I said, or like you said, they're going through rebar, they're getting this cage. What's up with the excavator over on the other side of the site?
All right, so right now we've completed just the main house. And now we just dug down for where the 2 garages are gonna go. Those walls aren't as tall, so we left that for now. We're gonna attack the main house, and that's also where our envelope kind of wraps around. We gotta get the waterproofing and the insulation on there. Those are just gonna be frost walls. So they're digging down. We'll get this civil engineer back to pin the corners on those. And then this foundation, we're splitting it up into 2 pours. So pour 1 will get through most of this.
This foundation for the main envelope is
Yeah.
2 pours.
Yeah.
Okay, walk me through that.
So we have
like I was, and you interrupted me.
we have a lot of corners. We have a lot of corners.
46, not 47, right?
I think, yeah.
Someone
47.
someone corrected us last week. Yeah.
It's all right. So the best way to attack this, after reviewing with our concrete subcontractors, that's, what his suggestion was, is break this up. And so we're actually going to start over, kind of like where the garage starts, over on the other side.
Yep.
Wrap this all the way around, and then we're going to make a break on one of these back walls, and we're going to do it in an area where obviously you won't see it.
Yep.
And then, so we hit that main section, and
why
then
is that important to not see it?
out of sight. We don't want, obviously the aesthetic of it, but then we also want to keep it as protected as possible too, because that would also.
You're talking about a cold joint.
Yes,
gotcha.
we'll have a cold joint.
Okay. So you don't want that cold joint to be like main focus if you're staring at the back elevation of the house.
Yes.
But also from just a constructability issue of where that cold joint is and how to, again, if it's going to shrink, how you're going to combat that.
Yep, and try to protect it from the weather too.
Sure.
Try to pick an area where it's the most protected.
Right. So that will be, and like you said, they're prepping for the garage. You'll do this in 2 sections. You'll get to there, and then you'll do the remaining section of it.
Yep.
And at that point, you can do the entire waterproofing around the foundation.
Waterproofing and insulation.
Waterproofing, installation, and then you're placing your frost walls for your garage.
Yep.
Gotcha.
So in one of those pours, we'll get the footings done for the garage.
Okay.
Probably pour 2.
And then as far as slab, where are we at with that? Is that at the very end? Are we doing that in multiple phases?
So the slab will all be in one shot, and it is at the very end. So that's why we have everything prepped. There'll be a little bit of handwork to come in, detail this out and get it nice and ready.
For the haunch slab.
For the haunch slab. We'll have to get our insulation in, we'll have to get the vapor barrier in, and then they get all the reinforcements for the haunches, and then there's also a wire mesh throughout the rest of the slab. Get all that stuff set, prepped and ready, get the slab in, and then after that we go to framing.
Sweet. So when are we placing these walls? Or
Friday.
pouring? Friday. This Friday. Next week, stay tuned, and we'll have at least partial pour of this first phase of the foundation. Thanks, guys.